I'm the president of the Paso Young Republicans, and it's a privilege to be here. I want to thank Mr. Seeberger at Grace Gardens for having this great event. We're proud to be moderating this debate between Congressional candidate Anthony Aguero and Jaime Arriola. It's going to be a more personal debate because of the fact that there are two candidates, so you'll be able to meet them and hear their policy very well. We're going to be having 6 questions ranging from various topics such as the role of government, USMCA, immigration, etc. They're going to give 3-minute opening statements. Each question is going to have 3 minutes of allotted time for each candidate, and there's going to be a 3-minute closing argument section, closing statements. So like I said, you'll be able to know all their policies, and by the end of the day, hopefully you'll be able to make a decision, because tomorrow starts the first day of early voting from February 18th to February 28th. I hope everyone in this room can show up to vote, because it is very important that we increase. When Trump won, I mean, we had only 29% of El Paso vote for the Republican candidate. We need to increase that number by as soon as possible. We need to go over the 50% mark like we did with Governor Bush. And we can do that now, and we can do that by getting everyone that you know out there to vote. So without further ado, we'll get started with the debate. Again, thank you all for being here, and enjoy.
I don't think they did that bad.
No, I thought there was supposed to be 2.
Okay, so they're going to share one?
Yes, they think that's true.
Yeah. So just one for us, and then
Okay.
you guys can share one.
Sounds good. Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Can you guys share?
Yeah.
All right, okay.
I was taught to share sometimes. I was thinking about it for a while. I don't know about that.
Okay, so I'm going to go over the rules one more time. Pretty easy to follow. There's going to be a 3-minute opening statement, so you can talk about anything you would like in regards to your policy or what your vision is for El Paso in District 16. Then we're going to have 6 questions, and each question is going to be allotted 3 minutes per candidate. And then we are going to have closing statements, which are going to be, again, 3 minutes per candidate. So we will proceed with the first question, excuse me. And, opening statements, of course. And we will start with Mr. Jaime Arriola.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Hope you don't mind. I want to move this out of the way. All right. I like to walk a lot, so it gives me a little bit more space to walk. How's everyone doing today? Woo-hoo! Oh, good. I like to hear that. My name's Jaime Arriola. I'm actually one of the candidates running. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a first-generation American. That's very important to say, first of all. Been a nurse for the last 10 years. I have a small business in town, and I'm a local farmer as well. We actually farm alpacas and llamas. I am fully bilingual, both in English and Spanish. I grew up here, was born and raised in El Paso, Texas, and grew up down in the Lower Valley. One of my biggest issues and the reason I decided to run is because I have patients who are getting essential necessities denied on a daily basis. What I mean by essential necessities is insulin, chemotherapy, nutrition. And I believe that in such an amazing, great country we live in, no one should starve to death, especially when they paid their taxes. They contributed to the Social Security system. They contributed to the Medicare system. So, as I see it, the government lied to all of us. And they continue to lie to us. We continue to pay into the system and we do not get anything in return. Not only that, we've actually been told that we get less than 67 cents for every dollar that you invest into the Social Security system. That is a problem. We need to fix this. We need to bring better legislations that address our people's needs, especially those in our community. We need to bring the mentality that Americans come first. We give a bunch of foreign aid to around the country. Not only that, but we continually spend for a lot of money excessively. The government has a spending problem. But yet we're going to tell someone that we can't give them an insulin? That is ridiculous. We need to make sure that we open up interstate lines to make sure insurances can trade in between it and allow pharmaceutical companies to be able to sell their products in our country. Now, a little bit about immigration. I love the idea of securing our country. I want to make sure we continue to provide the security, and we need to do so by better funding our Border Patrol agents as well. Other than just the wall. The wall is amazing, but we do need someone to manage. So we want to be able to vote for those things as well. Let me tell you, my patients down in Clint, San Elizario, they love that wall. Now, the other thing that we do need to talk about is the fact that currently the system is very lengthy, and it is rewarding those that come illegally. What do I mean by that? It means that they come in illegally and they get put in front of the line of those people who have been doing it legally this whole time. My parents immigrated legally from Mexico. They both became successful Americans. One of my father's a mechanical engineer, my mother's a nurse. Why aren't we talking about those things? Why aren't we talking about the fact that legal immigration is a way to do it? So we need to bring more of that. I am a pro-life candidate, and I do believe that the American dream is being infringed about. And we need to make sure that this socialist idea that's coming up needs to leave our land and never come back. We fought communism before, and we take it out of our country, we can fight socialism again. We need to make sure that we allow capitalism to prevail in our country, because that is the most essential way to provide for our citizens. My name is Jaime Arriola, and I want to talk more about limiting government in my next questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jaime, for your opening statement. And now, Mr. Aguero, you can proceed.
How you doing? I want to thank all of you guys for joining us here this beautiful evening. I want to give a quick thanks to Mr. Seeberger for organizing this event into the Young Republicans. My name is Anthony Aguero, and I'm currently running for Congress District 16 here in Texas. And first and foremost, I am a first-generation American as well. I am a strong constitutionalist. I believe that our Constitution was written for a reason, and for situations like we are currently undergoing right now. Our Second Amendment, I'm a huge Second Amendment advocate. It shall not be infringed upon, and that's where that ends. I am a huge, strong border security advocate. As many of you guys might know, I've been out at the border relentlessly for the last 2 years, trying to bring information to not just our local community, as the mainstream media does a phenomenal job in keeping us in the dark, but to the rest of the country, because many people do not think that we have a crisis down here at the border. As soon as I get into Congress, I plan on backing the efforts from Mike Rogers out of Alabama, H.R. 204. H.R. 204 is just straight out pulling us out of the United Nations. We are giving the United Nations billions of dollars every single year, over $10 billion, totaling up more than 22% of the current money that is given to the United Nations, and all they're doing is sticking us and stabbing us in the back with our own money. And the Restoring American Sovereignty Act is for us to also stop completely any kind of military interfering and playing police to the rest of the world. I think it's important for us to recognize that our servicemen and women have taken an oath to one flag, to one country alone, not the United Nations. So it's time we stop playing dummies. It's time we stop being taken advantage of, and it's time we start putting Americans first. Our veterans here locally have a VA clinic but do not have a VA hospital. I'm a huge advocate for veterans as well, as we have failed them tremendously on all aspects. 22 veterans are losing their lives every single day due to suicide because they cannot get the proper health treatment or mental stability treatment for themselves. So it's unexcusable for us to be the strongest nation in the world and not be taking care of our veterans properly. I plan on implementing a bill as soon as I get to Congress, in which we're going to be giving a hand up, not a handout, to all of our homeless veterans here locally, in which we're going to be able to provide them with a place to stay, a place to live where they can shower, leave their addictions behind, and give them a new hope for a new day, and be able to bring them on board, give them a place where they can shower, not have to worry about any rent or mortgage, and be able to have them actually reintegrate into society and look for a job in the 6 to 1 year time frame.
Thank you. Hopefully everyone was able to, thank you. Thank you to both candidates. Hopefully everyone was able to get an idea of the policy platform that each candidate has to offer. Now we're going to be going into the specific questions section of this debate. We are going to start with the proper role of government. And the question says, one of the most influential documents in the American founding was John Locke's Second Treatise of Government. Here, the Locke expressed the view that the government's role in society is to provide for life, liberty, and property. What is the proper role of government in the 21st century? And we will start with Mr. Arguello.
Well, in my eyes, the proper role of government in the 21st century is, in my opinion, what the founding fathers originally set it out to be, as outlined in the preamble to the U.S. Constitution. It states, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Everything else is a right reserved by individual states. Things such as educating our children, healthcare, these are not responsibilities of the government, and less interference from the government is the only way to ensure domestic tranquility.
Thank you, Mr. Aguero, and Mr. Arriola, you may
Do
proceed.
you mind just repeating the question?
Yes, absolutely.
Sure, of course.
The question we have is, one of the most influential documents in the American founding was John Locke's Second Treatise of Government. Here, Locke expressed a view that government's role in society is to provide for life, liberty, and property. What is the role of government in the 21st century?
Thank you so much. What I always talk about is we need to look at the base. Social contract theory by John Locke states that the government is made in the exchange for the people being in charge of it, essentially. We let the government know what we want off of it, and that is something that has been forgotten. I believe to returning back to that root, returning back to the idea that the government is here not to serve for us to serve them, but for them to serve us. We need to make sure we limit government. Government has overreached its abilities, and now it's invading our privacy, such as the Patriot Act, Section 215. There's different sections in there that allow for warrantless searches. These are things where the government has overreached its ability. We need to make sure that we return back to the idea that we are a constitutional republic, meaning that the federal government is there to oversee part in some of the guidelines through the government, but essentially the states are there to mandate themselves and to dictate what the regulations are. We need to make sure we decrease and limit government, and we need to make sure that we decrease all the regulations that continue to apply. Why? They stifle growth. When we add more regulations to the private sector, what we do is we prevent American jobs from being made. We need to stop that idea. When we have higher legislation, we have higher regulation, companies leave. We need to make sure we welcome those companies back into our country, and we need to make sure that we keep our government liable for what they do. We need to make sure that we allow people to have those voices. That's why voting is so essential. And it is detrimental for people to have those voices out here. Currently, the government continues to step forward and infringe our rights. As many have heard, the infringement of Second Amendment continues to be a battle that continues to be fought. This is not what the Founding Fathers envisioned. They envisioned a country where people were able to come and practice their religion without any prosecution. They were able to come and defend themselves. They were able to leave a tyrannic government that prosecuted their religious freedoms. We need to make sure that we hold the government accountable for their job. So remember, if you give some of your liberties to the government is supposed to give you something in return, but they don't always give your liberties back. We need to make sure we fight for those liberties back to ensure that the government stays where they belong to, and that is to be limited and only do what we allow them to do. Thank you so much.
We're now going to talk about the USMCA.
You want
In El Paso, our current average wage is 23.5% below the national average. The USMCA is expected to increase US GDP by as many as 1.2 percentage points and create up to 589,000 jobs. According to the International Trade Commission, how would you use this agreement to address El Paso's economic stagnation?
All right, actually, one part that I really like about this deal is the fact that now you have, for example, a car, it needs to be manufactured somewhere in North America. Let's take advantage of that. I say we go ahead and stop eliminating this idea that El Paso is only a port of entry. Right now, the mentality is they come through our port of entry and they leave. They don't stay here. Let's take advantage of that idea. Let's try and push for legislation that make it easier so manufacturing companies actually stay here in our city so we can create jobs. That is the biggest issue right now is people are leaving because we have too many high taxes and not enough jobs in our city. We need to make sure we retain that. It's a perfect time to take advantage of such an amazing historical thing. Thanks to our president, he did something that we really needed to have done many years ago and removed that NAFTA. So it is good that, thank you, it's good that we have a new deal that actually looks out for American jobs. Let's take advantage of that. Let's make sure we open up those plants. We have the labor. We have the ability to be able to keep those people working here in our city. Let's make it more inviting so that we have those companies being able to stay here. We can open up more jobs in storage, in facilities where they can assemble things. Let's take advantage of the fact that now manufacturers have to manufacture in our country. Let's keep them here. Let's not let them leave. So there's one thing that I would do is I would push for the idea that it has to be a requirement that port of entries will no longer just be used as a gateway, but rather be used as a retention system. There's plenty of ways to create benefits for the companies as well. Because if you shorten the distance they have to travel, they can actually manufacture more efficiently, cheaper, and we can actually continue to produce this job-creating market in our area. Thank you so much.
Well, this improved trade deal addresses many outdated elements of NAFTA and ensure level playing field for U.S. manufacturers. I say we start using one of El Paso's greatest assets, which is Fort Bliss and the Department of Defense. By this I mean we're home to one of the largest installations of Department of Defense, as well as one of the largest military veteran populations. I would look to help to bring more high-tech technology jobs to El Paso and bring defense industry that not only will benefit our defense, but also will be able to bring back jobs here locally and start having our college graduates have something to look forward to. We are currently losing lots of good talent from UTEP, and it is time we start holding on to that here locally. We have tons of call centers here in El Paso, and unfortunately our city council likes to pat themselves on the back, oh, we're bringing jobs, and when they bring Top Golf, where it's a bare minimum wage job where a high school kid can be working on, it's not enough money for a grown man that has a family to survive on. So we need to be able to bring back good, high-paying technology jobs and start helping our college graduates in the workforce in a competitive market. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on from USMCA, we're going to be addressing immigration. Starting with Mr. Aguero, the question reads, according to the Department of Labor, the U.S. economy had 7.6 million unfilled jobs, but only 6.5 million people were looking for work as of January 2019. How would you address the nation's illegal immigration population, keeping in mind its labor shortage?
Well, first and foremost, illegal immigration is illegal, so you're not entitled to getting any kind of job here, period. The fact that we have so many jobs available just goes to show that we have a booming economy thanks to President Trump, and it's time we take advantage of that. I believe if we start cutting these welfare programs to these individuals that are basically taking advantage of the system by staying home and not doing anything, not wanting to go out there and get a job, we have to start looking harder into these individuals on a case-by-case basis of these individuals that are taking advantage of the welfare system, put them back to work and fill those jobs. And like I said, illegal immigration is still legal. You have broken the law and you should be held accountable.
Thank you.
And I'm going to be real annoying, I'm sorry. Can you
Yes,
repeat the
of course,
question?
absolutely. According to the Department of Labor, U.S. economy had 7.6 million unfilled jobs, but only 6.5 million people were looking for work as of January 2019. How would you address the nation's illegal immigration population, keeping in mind its labor shortage?
All right, and I agree. The idea of illegal immigration makes it illegal, right? So it is illegal. We need to make sure we address that. We need to make sure we create that. But at the same time, I think we do need to create a way to make sure those jobs that we don't want to do, which is picking up fruit, doing those things that people don't really want to do, we need to create a system, a program to be able to retain those people and be able to get those people over to their job. Work visas are essential to this system. But there's a but to it, okay? The last time we did it was the Bracero program, right? It was fine and dandy. We got people filling the jobs. I mean, it was great. But there was one problem. The problem is that it was led by controlling one farmer was the one that was allowed to mandate this individual, right? They had to work with this one farmer. What that created? That created a mentality of indentured servitude. People were scared to say, hey, I'm being abused, hey, I'm not being paid the correct things, hey, I'm not being taken care of correctly, because they were scared that they would be kicked out of the nation. We need to make sure we create a better system where we can create and document and track the individuals that are coming over to work in our country, because tracking and maintaining record is essential to ensure that illegal immigration does not continue to be a booming business. We need to make sure that we maintain that ability to be able to give them jobs so we can retain those employees so they can actually fill in the positions that we have on the employment area, especially when it comes to the agricultural jobs. And finally, just a really quick section to touch on it. The idea right now of pushing away a lot of the individuals that want to work because it is a very expensive system to get them, we don't give enough work visas, is only hurting us economically. We need to create a better system. That's why I push for an immigration reform, which fixes the whole system a whole, because we cannot continue to keep patching up the immigration system because it is not getting better. Thank you.
From immigration, we move to the issue of abortion. If a conservative court overturns Roe v. Wade, would you be in favor of a federal ban on abortion, or should the issue be remanded back to the states?
So like I said, I love the idea of the states managing themselves, but I do believe that based on John Locke's social contract theory, the federal government has a responsibility to provide life, to protect life. And that is something essential. We need to go ahead and provide the guidelines that abortion is not and will never be used as a form of contraceptive. And especially when we are funding it with our tax dollars, our federal tax dollars. I say, if my federal tax dollars are being responsible for some of these, then I get to tell you you're not going to do it. So we need to make sure that we preserve the constitutional right to live in our country. This is killing. This is straight out killing. Why do I say straight out killing? Because it is mainly used as a form of contraceptive. I mean, how many contraceptives do we have and we're going to say that the only option is to kill someone? It's ridiculous that is the answer that we have generated as an okay answer. I can't believe this. We have been told never to kill anyone, but yet they want to turn around and say it's okay because it hasn't taken a breath. No, that's not the way it works. I believe the federal government has a strong responsibility to abide by those laws that we have provided in the social contract theory and our constitutional right to provide for the life of any individual, whether they have taken a breath or not. We define an individual who has passed away by when their brainwaves go away. What is to say that these children don't have brainwaves in a couple weeks after being conceived? We need to make sure we protect life, as it is an essential right that our Constitution and our country was founded upon, and we must protect everyone in our country. Thank you.
Now, although I am a pro-life advocate as well, if we want to be technical about it, I'll refer you back to the preamble of the U.S. Constitution, where it makes no reference or charge in regards to reproductive rights of a woman. The first and foremost, the federal government should have no business in any of that. I strongly feel that because we are in America, God made us all free, willing individuals, and as for me, abortion is horrible, and to me it's something very, very immoral. but unfortunately we live in the land of the free, and in this case right now, even if we were to overturn Roe versus Wade, abortions are not going to stop. So that's just the way it is. People have other values. Overturning it will just create total chaos. I could imagine the left losing their minds, but first and most importantly, women's life are at risk along with many other babies. I think the only way that we're able to address this issue is by education and bringing biblical values back into our families and into our schools. And so, I am for the state taking order of it, but not. I'm strongly against the federal government getting their hands in any of it.
Going forward from abortion, we are going to touch on the VA. The VA is experiencing problems with accountability and efficiency. Would you leave it to the department to further decrease its wait time for claim decisions, or would you look to privatization of its services?
I'm all for privatization of it. I've spoken many times to veterans here at the VFWs, and I've conducted surveys, and many of them are very, very unhappy with it. The lack of empathy and sympathy from some of these VA employees, and the fact that they've never been veterans themselves. They cannot comprehend what a veteran is going through. So our veterans should be able to have the choice of walking into whatever doctor's office, whatever hospital, and be taken care of right then and there without having to wait extraneous amount of time, weeks, sometimes even months to get their time with a specialist. So I'm all for the privatization of it, and I strongly believe that our veterans should be taken care of. We need to do better for them. These guys have at some point been willing to lay their life on the line, and I'm still on that. We have failed these guys tremendously. Upon getting into office, I will fight tooth and nail for the rights to be able to be taken care of on a much grander scale and taken much more seriously.
Thank you, Mr. Aguero. Mr. Arriola, would you like the question?
No, I think we're good this time. All right. So I actually worked at Beaumont. I worked at Beaumont for close to 5 years. And the neat thing about it is I actually got to work with the VA system as well, because we're creating outreach clinics in the community. And let me tell you, one of the biggest things I found is we have the resources to provide the services. The issue is that the bureaucracy, the paperwork, the integration of technology is so poor. There is no ability to communicate from one another. We literally, as veterans, oh wait, your chart's not here, let me go get it. Oh wait, your doctor changed, so you're gonna have to tell your whole story back again. I'm sorry, I know it took you 6 months to get here, but we're gonna have to start again. That is a problem. The problem where I see is the problem is technology. So I think my issue with privatizing the whole VA system is that private doctors don't understand what a soldier went through. They don't understand what being a soldier is like. So I do believe we need to retain the ability for soldiers to still treat soldiers, but we need to make sure that those soldiers that are treating soldiers are veterans themselves. Because the idea that the soldier leaves, gets deployed, the veteran has to restart, that's a problem. Where I feel that the privatization needs to happen is in creating one system that has all the detailed information between all the DoD departments, between all the governmental entities that provide healthcare to military members to ensure that the transparency of data is flowing appropriately back and forth. So this is how it works right now, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. I remember I had this one patient came in, he needed a wheelchair because he had fractured his ankle, and we said, all right, no worries, I will get you a wheelchair. I submitted it to my CHCS, which is one of the programs, then I turn around, I have to do my note in Alta that has to reflect the same thing that my CHCS notes, they clear. Then I have to contact the case manager from the VA to let them know that they're going to go ahead and receive this referral. Then I wait for them to approve it. Once they approve it, they contact me back. All right, they have it. Then I have to contact Beaumont and let them know, hey, we're going to need a wheelchair. And then they tell me you need to go get this form signed. So once they give me the form, I go get it signed to the VA. And then I come back and I get the wheelchair and the ankle is healed. So I don't know what I can do at this point. So that is the biggest problem we have. The problem is not the resources. The problem is the fact that the integration is not there. I say let's get a private sector that already has built a good system for a hospital. Let's implement it into our government and have it unified all across all branches to ensure that every single veteran gets the services that we promised them, because I strongly believe if I make a promise, I'm keeping my word, and we aren't doing that right now. Thank you.
We are going to be moving on to our last topic, which is healthcare. Democratic presidential candidates have proposed programs such as Medicaid for All or Medicaid for All who want it. The White House is taking action to improve transparency, encourage competition, and lower costs. What do you believe would be the most effective solution in the healthcare policy debate?
Capitalism, that's the straight answer. I mean, there's nothing better than it, right? Let's make it competitive. Let's make sure that we have these insurances saying, hey, you can sell across state lines, because I don't know if you know, there is cities in this country that only offer one option for healthcare services. That is ridiculous that in a country where there are so many insurances, and insurance business is one of the biggest businesses, some cities only have one choice, which means they can monopolize. I thought we had regulations against monopoly, but apparently it doesn't apply to insurances the same way that nothing else applies to them. So we need to make sure we open up those state lines to ensure that we can send that ability for people to sell and receive insurances from across state lines. Not only that, but let's open up those pharmaceutical lines. So this is the way it works right now. In India, generates the most antibiotics in the world because they have no legislations against dumping things into the river. So they make all these things, right? But they have to sell them through a labeling company when they come into our country. What does that mean? That means a labeling company has a right to raise the price of that medication to whatever they feel like without any actual regulation of it. Why don't we open up the market and allow these pharmaceutical companies to sell the same medication that we're already taking at a competitive price? We need to create transparency. We need to make sure everyone knows what they're going to pay before they go into a hospital. We need to make sure, because I don't know if you're aware, actually everyone pays a different price on a medication based on which insurance you belong to. That is ridiculous. Transparency should be across all the country, equal pricing for everyone, and equal accessibility to all life necessities, life medication, insulin, treatments. One of the problems I have with it as well is the fact that, so a physician goes to school 7, 8, 10 years, 12 years, half of their life, to make decisions to be able to treat you better, right? But we've told the insurances have told people, no, I know you have 12 years of experience, but my 6-month training biller and coder here is going to go ahead and deny your claim because they don't feel that your patient really needs it. So let me understand this right. So the insurance is allowed to tell someone how long they're going to live. They're allowed to tell people who's going to live and who's not going to live. They're allowed to kill people, but I thought we were the country that protected life. Why are we not protecting that? Let's get away from the idea that lobbyists own the politicians. These career politicians are owned by these lobbyists who give all the power to insurances. Let's get that power back to the people. Let's tell insurances, we pay the premiums, we make the decisions, we tell you what we need, and my doctor's going to tell you how to take better care of me. So let's bring the power back to the American people. Thank you.
And I believe we must first have healthcare written in a way that everyone can understand it much, much easier. We must first implement easy to understand healthcare pricing transparency. Next, require Medicare to directly negotiate drug prices with pharmaceutical companies. And lastly, end healthcare system's dominant fee-for-service payment practices, which reward providers for their quantity of services, not their quality or efficiency, and to move a patient-focused, cost-effective, value-based care where providers are compensated based on effectiveness. Additionally, growing opioid pandemic is attributed for high healthcare prices, and to combat this, we must enact more prevention awareness initiatives to the dangers and addictions of opioid abuse, as well as to the rehabilitative services.
Thank you, candidates. We are now going to be moving on to the last portion of this debate, which is closing statements. Both of you have 3 minutes, and Mr. Aguero, you may proceed.
Okay, first and foremost, as a first-generation American, it is a slap in the face to see all of these individuals that are just crawling across the country over our borders illegally. Upon getting into office, I do plan on introducing a bill where we are able to give our Customs Border Protection agents additional training, giving them a time frame, 7 to 10 days, because first and foremost, individuals that are turning themselves in at the legal port of entries I agree, they should not be penalized or be put into jail-like camps indefinitely for weeks or for months on end. We have to have a little bit more compassion as far as that is concerned. So I believe that giving our Customs and Border Protection maybe a 7 to 10-day time frame for them to do their due diligence and find out who actually qualifies for asylum and who doesn't. Only about 12% of these individuals actually qualify for it. The others don't. So the ones that do, welcome, come on board. We're going to give you 6 months so that you're able to assimilate and hopefully get you on some kind of work program. The ones that don't get a free one-way ticket on the way back home. Oh, but it's going to cost too much money to be spending on airfare. No, it's not. We're spending anywhere from $1,800 to $2,300 per individual to house them and feed them. Now, our court systems are backed up 6 to 7 years right now. Doing away with the immigration judges is going to help us tremendously, because we're apprehending these individuals and releasing them into the community in hopes of them returning to their court date, which only 42% of these individuals are actually coming back to. We need a strong border, we need a border security, and I'm not just talking about technology. Technology will eventually turn into an issue, into spying on American citizens. So I feel that aside from drones, we do need a physical barrier to impede these large numbers of individuals that are trying to come across. Unfortunately, let's just be honest, a physical barrier at the border is a sign of past failed policies. So without us incentivizing this, we would not be having this issue. So we need to go back, we need to stop incentivizing these individuals with freebies, and we need to start clamping down on leftist organizations based out of Chicago, like Al Otro Lado and Pueblos Sin Fronteras, which I have been able to confront out in Tijuana and in Ciudad Juarez. Come down on them, because those are the main reason why these individuals are coming across, because of the United Nations Open Migration Pact as well, which is a big reason of why I feel we need to be the United Nations. We've been actually able to identify some of the individuals that we have already confronted at our southern border, incentivizing, giving false documentation and fake marriages to these individuals. So it's time we start taking America back and take a strong stand against these leftist socialists that are trying to run our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aguero. Mr. Arriola, you may proceed.
All right, so I told you a little bit about myself. Now I just kind of want to wrap it all up, okay? My biggest focus is that in a primary, we need to focus on one thing. We need to focus on who can beat Veronica Escobar. That's what we need to be here to focus for. Yes, we need to focus on voting someone who can actually go up there and be competitive. That's what we need to focus on. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself again to wrap it all up. I'm not a one-candidate issue. Okay, I have a lot of issues in it. I have a big platform, and I want to be able to encompass what the idea is of bringing back what is right for Americans. Bring back the idea that Americans come first, because we are America. That's who we need to take care of. As a nurse, I was always told, you cannot take care of anyone else if you don't take care of yourself. So why aren't we taking care of our own people? Why are we taking care of everyone else before ourselves? That is a wrong mentality. We need to bring the mentality back of America first. We need to make sure that we focus on trying to protect the rights that are rightfully given to us by the Constitution, and that we make the correct decisions for our people. We need to get career politicians out of there. We need to create term limits to ensure that no one can become another Pelosi. And we need to make sure that we can make the right things for our people. Not only that, I am a first generation American. I am a bilingual. I was born and raised here in El Paso, Texas, down in the Lower Valley. Believe it or not, I still volunteer a lot down there. I actually help out a lot of groups down in Segundo Barrio, El Barrio. As a home health nurse, I travel over from Tornillo all the way to Anthony, Texas, Montana Vista. I cover a lot of property. Let me tell you, one of the biggest things I know is that people need someone to connect with. And the issue that I've seen in the past elections is we've never elected someone that we can get the people to connect to. We need to pick a candidate that we can get those Democratic votes that we are not getting, or those 400,000 votes that are missing constantly, because we have over almost 500,000 people enrolled, and we only got 182,000 votes last time. That's ridiculous. 182,000 people voted in our city when we have so much more. We need to vote for someone that can actually go out to these communities, get those votes that people are not getting, so we can win back this city. Because this city was not raised on the morals and rights and ideas that the Democratic continue to spread. We weren't raised with the idea that socialism was a way. That's why my parents left Mexico. Why would I want to go to the same thing that they left? Let's make sure that we create an ability and a candidate that people can connect to and they can see, so we can get rid of Veronica Escobar and actually get some progress in our city. Thank you so much. Well, Jaime Arriola, I'll stay afterwards if you have questions. And follow me on social media or at jaimeforcongress.com. Thank you.
We don't have time. And at this time, the debate has concluded. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Arriola, and thank you, Mr. Aguero.